Scott Jackson is our presenter, and he is currently the chairperson of the Clinton Historic Preservation Commission, which sometimes makes him the favorite person in town probably, and sometimes the not so favorite person in town. But certainly someone that is necessary to town as historic as Clinton. Scott is an assistant professor at Mohawk Valley Community College, teaching carpentry and masonry. He has been in the building trades for over 35 years, restoring older homes and historic structures, and he has a master's degree in building conservation from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and I think that makes him very qualified to talk on our subject today. I'm pleased to welcome Scott to Clinton.
Thank you. Okay. Hi. Let me give out. I have some things to hand out to everybody first, and I will talk along these lines. So if you want to follow me along with these, with this.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
You want to do it? Thank you. Hopefully there's enough there. Not. I have a computer. First thing I want to talk about, just like this is on there, your pre-World War II windows are better than any window you can buy today. Okay? Back then, if you have a home that was made before World War II, the windows were usually made by the carpenter or they made by a local shop. And that's when people took wood and they knew wood and they understood the graining of the wood, what was the best wood to use for certain parts of your home, like white oak or fir or so forth. They're perfect examples of exterior wood that you would use on your house. Cedar, so forth. Cedar's soft, so you probably wouldn't use cedar on your window sash, but you could use for like siding and so forth. So fir and white oak is a very durable wood. And not only that, they would look at the grain, find out which way it's going, and what they wanted exposed to the weather and whatnot. Nowadays, that doesn't happen. You buy a wood window nowadays, and it's usually it's encased in steel. It's encased in metal because they're just using the cheapest wood they can find, okay? And they have to protect that wood from the elements. And it works until the seal fails. And once the seal fails, and then moisture gets in there, and then it makes home for fungus and bacteria and all that, and without being able to dry, the window rots out very fast. Okay, so yeah, windows before World War II are the best windows you're ever going to see. Okay, so I'll talk about that. You can buy windows from Marvin. You can ask for wood windows, and they will make them for you, and they'll make you mahogany windows. And I just found this out a year ago. I was looking at a project and they were putting mahogany windows in this project. I said, okay, that's great. And then I got into it. And then as I was looking into it, they were making windows out of mahogany, but it was a mahogany veneer. Okay? Just like you would on a table. It's a veneer. It's not solid wood. So it's just glue holding the veneer onto its backing. Whether the backing is mahogany or something else, it doesn't matter. It isn't part of the whole sash. And so, yes, that will fail. Okay, so, yes, that's what makes it special. Another thing is glass. Little thing about glass is, like, if you think about it, back in the 18th century, when we made a federal home, okay, you couldn't get big panes of glass. Okay, how it was made was the guy would take a steel pole, heat up a ball of glass, okay? And then he'd put it on his bar and he'd roll it, and then it would expand like a piece of pie, okay? And he'd just keep on rolling it, and it would get bigger and bigger and bigger until it started to harden. And then he'd put it onto a table, and he'd cut the glass into pieces. And then the glass pieces were only like, they could only get maybe this big. And so you look at a federal house, and they could have, what would they call 12 over 12? Like it would have 12 lights on the bottom sash and 12 lights on the top sash. It could be 24 lights on the top shaft and 24 lights on the bottom sash. You have a lot of little windows on each sash, okay? But then when the colonial times came, they found that they could make glass bigger, okay? So you'd have less muttons, bigger pieces of glass, letting in more light. Nowadays, they can make huge pieces of glass, but it's still done the same thing. You're taking molten glass, you're putting it over a molten tin, and they can make it very smooth. Another beauty about if you have old windows and you look at it, you look at the glass, and it's wavy, right? You can see it, and it's got like that three-dimensional curves to it, and it makes the light different in your home. It's just really pretty. Okay, so when you break that pane, you got to replace it. And if you go down to Agway to get another piece of tin, it's just going to be a smooth piece of glass, and you lose that with that part. So, so that's pretty much about glass. Were there any left over? Did everybody get one?
Yes, there are some left over.
Were there? Okay, because I got to use that as my guide at least. Thank you. I don't know what to talk about next. Okay. And another thing is, just a quick little thing. Everything was symmetrical for a very long time until we probably got into the Victorian style homes. And then we started making asymmetrical homes, right? So, you know, with a Queen Anne Victorian always has a tower to it. All right? But then from the tower, the front porch wraps around the side, the other side. So they balance each other out. You have this beautiful porch on this one side, you have the tower on the other side. It's asymmetrical. Okay, so I have a picture, examples of a symmetrical and asymmetrical building on there. So everything was symmetrical all the way up to about that time, and then all of a sudden things started to change. And that's quite interesting until we get into maybe about the 70s, and when things started to be, you know, I see some horrible pictures of houses built in the 70s, you know, just no one thought about design. It gets kind of sad, but that's how it goes. But so most homes are symmetrical or asymmetrical, as it's shown there. And your house and your glass, when you talk about glass, it has a U factor, okay? And a U factor is how you have an R factor and you have a U factor. An R factor is something of the building envelope itself, like your walls, your insulation, and so forth, how much it resists movement of cold air or hot air through that, okay? And U factor blocks, and that's what we talk about with glass, is U factor. I don't know the science about it, but when you're buying a home, it tells you, okay, it has a U factor of so-and-so and so-and-so. Now, when you're buying a brand new house, or buying a brand new window, it'll have a U factor on it, and it'll be insulated glass. It'll be double pane or triple pane, and it has a really high U factor, and that is what they put on the sticker on your window. But that doesn't say anything about the rails and the stiles and the muttons that are in between. So if you're buying a metal window or a PVC window, those are hollow. So, okay, you don't have metal or plastic that goes all the way through. There is a thermal break there, but still, it doesn't have any thermal resistance in between the sash in between the rail and the stile. And same thing here, there's a lot of open space in here. So you can lose a lot of energy through that. Wood is a really good insulator. Okay, so buying a wood window, if you're going to replace your windows, buy a wood window. Even if it's going to be metal clad, that is better than having a PVC window or a metal window. Metal now, which will probably be aluminum. Okay, and another thing about PVC windows is it's PVC, and UV light from the sun breaks down PVC very fast. So you got maybe a 20-year lifespan for these windows. They'll start breaking down. Even so, if a part breaks on it and you want to just replace that part, is that business still around? Okay, so that's something you have to think about with that. On the next page, if everybody takes a look at this, all right? All right, so on the first one it says right there, if you take a single pane window and you just put a storm window on it, it's going to pay for itself in 4.5 years. Just the storm window that you're going to put on it. All right. Don't look at the cost, because this is done back in the 90s, so it's the cost is enough. But you just think about the replacement of it. Okay. And the next one is a double pane thermal replacement single pane window. Those are probably not made anymore. Usually on the next one it says low E glass. On the next one, double pane thermal replacement of a single pane window. That's usually what you're going to buy nowadays. All right. And the replacement of that is 34 years. It's going to pay for itself in 34 years. Now, the very last one, if you have a single pane window and it has a storm window on it, and you replace that with an insulated glass window, it's going to take 240 years to pay off that window. Okay? These windows that you buy today are not going to last that long. If you buy a wooden window that's metal clad, you got a 30, 35-year lifespan for that window. All right? It works perfect. Right to the point that the seals that seals the metal clad on it break. Okay, that's not going to last forever. It'll fail, and then, like I said, moisture gets in there, and the wood's just going to rot away. Okay, so I think that's, I love that last one, 240 years, wow. And this window, which was probably made 1920s, I got this thing, and it was just, this side was just caked with paint. You couldn't open either window. I stripped it all, and I reglazed the glass, I weather stripped it, and if this is outside, in another 50, 60 years, somebody has to do the same thing again. But we can still use the same window over again, and keep on using it. I've repaired windows from the 1790s, okay? Same glass, same sash, same everything. I may have had to do a little Dutch repair. Ever know what a Dutch repair is? Okay, that's sort of like when maybe you have a little rot right here, and I will cut out that rot, and I will find the same piece of wood and cut that piece to that size, and then I'll glue it in. And I still have the same sash, I just repaired it. Weather stripping. Weather stripping is going to block the flow of air on every point where the sash meets the jamb, or where the sill, or the header, or where the two sash meet. Okay, and there's a lot of different weather strips that you can use for that. So I first want to talk about the anatomy, which is the next page. Got a picture of it right there. Okay, let's see. So as you can see, where the window hits this piece of wood, it's on this other piece, right? This is a stop, all right? And if I turn her around, we have another stop. This is adjustable. I mean, it's nailed, I can move this where I need to do when I just nail it. But this is a stop on here, And then we have our sash. Okay, and our sash, these are rails. The horizontal parts are rails. Here's your bottom rail. That's a meeting rail. That's a top rail. And on the back window, you have another meeting rail right here. Meeting rail, obviously, is two rails meet together, so it's a meeting rail. And these are the stiles on both sides. Okay, you have your mutton. You have a this is a 4/1, right? And your mutton have four lights in here. And in between this sash and this sash is a parting beam. It's a piece of wood. It's up on top here. Okay, and that separates the two sash. Any questions? My students say sometimes I go too fast, so I mean, or if they're paying attention to me. This right here, this is called a stool. All right, and this is called a stool, and underneath it, like in the house, at your house, you have another board underneath it. It's called an apron. And this is casing. Okay? Now, if we turn the window around to the exterior side, this is called the sill, the window sill. Okay? So now you all know it. If I just say these words, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Okay, good. All right. So, but I will be saying things, and if you do not understand what I'm saying, just please, you say so. All right. So when we get started, to take this window apart, we just need some simple tools. Okay. I have a putty knife. I got a hammer. I have a screwdriver, and a razor knife. All right. If we start out on the inside of the house, we have the lower sash. This we have to take this out. It's not. This is the easiest part of the project. I can take my putty knife, or a little thin crowbar too will work. I like the putty knife because I don't want to damage the wood. Oh, if it's painted, right. If this is painted, sorry. Excuse me, we have to separate the paint from the jam and the stock. So I take a razor knife and I cut the paint right on down, and cut the bottom also up here and down. If this is painted shut here to the if the sash is painted shut to the stop, you may want to take a knife and just slice that also. Okay? And sometimes when you do, the paint chips out. So there's going to be some sanding, or you're going to take off all the paint on this. Depends on how far you want to get into this job. I put more nails in it than this, but since I take this apart all the time, I just put 3 nails in it. Just to make it look really easy, so you'll do it. Until you finally do it, you're like, oh my God, this is such a pain in the butt. Okay, I took my first stop off.
That's called a stop?
This is called a stop. Because it stops this thing from, well, let me take the other one out. I'm just being real careful, and I'm tapping nice and easy. Just take your time. Oh, by the way, Estwing hammer, best on the planet. When I was young, in my 20s, I found this on the job site, and it looked like this. Okay? I'm 63, and it's my favorite hammer. I told my daughter, when I die, okay, we're gonna take my ashes and put them in a bag, tie them to this hammer, and take it to my favorite mountain, the Adirondacks, and throw it off the side of the mountain. So, it's going with me.
those sometimes screwed in instead of nailed?
You can find some that have screws in them. Do you have them screwed in your house? Yes. And they'll have a little grommet that the screw goes in, right? Yes. And your window doesn't have cords, right?
Well, it did, till we got them all replaced with
Oh,
the new
okay.
ones.
Well, we won't talk about that. Now some loose. Now I can take this baby out. Maybe. Okay, so now you can see on the sides, okay, I had the rope comes down, is tied into a knot, these are all grooved out, little hole for the knot, and it's sitting right in here. I probably, nope, I don't, okay? I just pull that baby out. And what I do is I have a knot on this to make sure that it doesn't go through, because sometimes there's usually a piece of wood there that stops right there. There's usually a sill, a framing sill that sits there. But I've been in homes that don't have it, and then they just went through and then I lost that. And I have to go and buy a new one. So, I take them out, and I have my first one out of here. All right, now, I don't know, I'm gonna go through this, maybe I'll go through it twice. But on the bottom sill, okay, I took a router and I made a little groove in there, like that, okay? And I'm gonna give you all the information to buy all this material, okay, and so forth. But there's a little groove, it goes in the router. You can also do this with a table saw, but you have to make sure that you have the correct thickness of the curve of the blade, okay? And this thing is just a silicone ball, that's all it is. And you press it, you just press it in, like that. Now, you don't want to push it in and then push it like this in because it's going to stretch it out, okay? And then you're going to cut it, and when it finally falls back to where it wants to be, then you're going to have a little gap here. So you just want to press it in with your hand like that, and it will go right in. On the meeting board, right here, there's a little silicone flap. Same thing. Just a little silicone flap, and it goes right in here. And so when the two come together, it makes a block right here. All right? I teach some class and usually see a couple heads on the table by now. I didn't bring a bulb. Oh, shoot. I wanted to pass around the bulb so you get to see what it feels like. But that is that's the little flipper that goes on between the meeting. You can just take it. And it just, and you just see that goes on the meeting rail right here. Okay? And I am sorry I don't have it, but, oh, I can just take this off. You guys can take a look at that too. Right. It's just a bulb. And it comes in different, you can buy it in different sizes.
Is it called ball or bulb?
A bulb.
Bulb.
B-U-L-B, bulb.
Like a light bulb.
That's just, I just call this a flap. And so this isn't a bulb. This is just gonna put, you're gonna put resistance on it when you put the other when the two meeting rails come together, that'll stop any weather from coming through right there. Yep. But the bulb on the bottom is hollow on the bottom of it, so it just compresses against the sill or against the top jamb. Okay, and so I'm going to go over this again, but I don't know if you can see this, but right here, I'll show you on this side, I have a little piece of copper. It's actually bronze. Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to make a mess. Okay, it's a little piece of bronze like this, and it's crimped right there. So when you nail this edge to it, this side will stick out a little bit, like that. I don't know if everybody can see this, but what that does, it puts resistance up against the sash, and so weather can't get in through here. You guys over here, if you can see this, just a piece of copper, and it's nailed in with copper nails. Same thing over here. It's just, there it is right there. And it's pretty darn effective. This is not the only way of doing it, but this is the way I've always done it, and it works pretty well. And I'm surprised how expensive this stuff got recently. And then you buy it, and it usually comes with a packet of copper nails. Put them in. Now, that was easy. All right, we got our ropes, we got our weights and so forth, but we're still going to take the back sash off. Now this is a bit more of an issue because usually nobody uses their top sash, and so this gets painted in really bad. And so I've had to come in, oh God, I think one I did in Albany, the people that lived in it had whole house of air conditioning in their house. And so they had somebody come and they just caulked everything. It was on the outside, everything was caulked. And so I had to sit there with my putty knife and just every single way up. Usually if it's just paint, I can do that, and it usually just cracks all the way up and no problem, and I can just do this, and that is fine, I can get that. But now, when they paint, and the paint it's inside here, so it makes it hard for us to open this, and not only this gets paint, and sometimes the paint gets clogged up in here. And so you got to get up in here, your putty knife, and scrape that off, try not to hurt and damage anything, and get all that paint out of here. Because you can't take the parting board out until we get this one all the way down. Because it has, because the bottom meeting rail sticks out a little bit right here. Everything okay? Oh, I was making an echo in here, must have been. Okay, so there's a bottom meeting rail sticks out, and you can't pull this out. I can take it all the way down the bottom, and then I can pop them out. There. And so the meeting rails, usually one is, since the sill should be at an angle, so these should be at an angle on the bottom. That's how you know which one it is. And they do get loose sometimes, so every once in a while you just throw a little nail in there, just to keep it in here. Okay? Don't glue these in or anything like that. Let them be loose. Let them move around in here. And now I can take this out. Of course, I have that weather stripping. I got to get that in here.
What are those called, those pieces that you just took out?
These are parting beads. Okay, and they're in your anatomy, but it shows you a really bad picture of it. I think it shows this parting bead up here. Parting bead. Parting bead, yes. Come on, Bo. Okay, now we have it out. And now you see we have a silicone bulb on the very top. And that's to go up against the top cutter. And there it is. It's that simple. Okay? So now we have this all out. All right? And now we can put our weather stripping on it, like I've shown you. And if you have a router, okay, where you buy these bulbs and the flap there, they will sell you the correct size knife for your router for this. You can buy, there's going to be 2 different sizes that you'll probably have to buy. Okay, but then once you get that all set, you just run your router through it and you cut that. How many people use a router? Okay. Router is the most fun tool. It really is a lot of fun. You can shape wood different shapes and stuff. It's just like, you just look for things to do with it. You know, it's just so much fun. So, yeah, if you don't have a router, go out and buy a router. Just to go play with it because it's a great fun toy. Play with it. Just keep your fingers away from the knife. That's an issue. Now, okay, so this comes back up to this about paint. Because if you are restoring this window and you want to take the paint off it, you're going to be taking lead paint off it. Okay? So, what I do in homes, especially if I was working on a home that has little kids in it, I work in a place that's completely sealed. Okay? Whether if I'm taking them all out of the room, I either take all the furniture out, or it's covered with plastic, everything's covered with plastic, floor's covered with plastic. Okay? If I'm just doing one window, excuse me, there's a picture there, you see it's a self-containing plastic thing. I have those poles. I can put the poles up to hold the plastic up around and keeps me inside the plastic, okay? Now, after you're done and you're wearing a mask and so forth like this, and you've taken all the paint off of it, okay, clean up. You can't vacuum it. You don't want to sweep it because you're just going to make a dust, okay? Everything gets wiped down and you use a wet rag to wipe everything down. Walls, floor, everything gets wiped down, okay? So that's to keep you and the rest of the people that come to your home protected from the lead paint, especially little children. I mean, the worst thing, the biggest problem with little kids is if you have leaded paint on here, okay, and you're opening and closing the window all the time, what happens is it scrapes the paint and then you get dust right here. And so kids run up to the window and they put their hands on the stool and they're looking outside. And then they go play. And then they always have their hands in their mouth all the time, right? And that's mainly the biggest problem with lead paint in children is that right there.
Kids don't play anymore.
Kids don't what?
They don't play anymore.
Oh, that's right, yeah, right. So, so that's really important that usually happens. I mean, like, yeah, of course you have wood chips, but, you know, most people keep their house maintained and, you know, you don't have to worry about that. If you have lead paint in the inside of your house, okay, you just put a latex paint over it that protects it from the lead paint from flaking off or from the dust to come from it. So, you know, that's an easy protective way of doing it. But yeah, keeping lead chips away and keeping protection from the dust. So what I always say, like, if you do have little kids, you know, once a week, just wipe that down with a wet rag, all the sills in the house, or the stools, just to keep them from touching that stuff. So now we have this open, right? And of course, we don't see these. They're in here. And On the back side, it's on the front side, but this one is in the back side. We have a weight pocket. Pops out. Now I can reach in here. Gee. I can pull my weights out. All right, and you got to make sure that they're on the right side. And so, oh, that's on the wrong side. And so now I can just replace these ropes. It's all open. And this is really unusual. This is the first time I've seen a double small weight like this. I've seen them on big windows, but never seen a double weight like this. They're kind of a pain in the butt. But so what I had to do is, actually what I did was I took this out and I put a washer in it because I had to make a knot too big to hold it. So I just put washers on the rope, and that keeps that one in place. And I did the same thing on that guy. So they're there. So I put my knots through that. When you cut your ropes, you're going to push your ropes down, put your rope down through there, and then you're going to reach in here and try to grab it. On big windows, sometimes it gets stuck hitting the 2x that's on the other side. It's just stuck. So I take a coat hanger. And I just put a little hook in it, and I reach up there and I try to find it and pull it down. So you get your fingers in here and pull this out for this. Then you make your knots to tie in your weights, and I usually keep this hanging down here. All right. I also put a knot in just in case. Yes.
Is it better to use like clothesline rope like that, or?
It's this shouldn't be called clothesline. It should be window sash.
Oh.
Okay. Clothesline would be 1/4 inch. I think sash should be 5/16. Okay, this rope here is clothesline. And I have on here right now, it's really thin, and what I've noticed is it falls off the pulleys all the time. It's too small. So you want to use the clothesline to make a bigger rope. So you tie this, you bring this, you let it hang down here, maybe put a knot in it up here, just a loose knot, just to make sure it doesn't fall back out through here. And you can do this on the other side. Now once I've done that, tied these, I put these guys in, making sure they're on their correct side, because if they cross over, they can get bungled up against each other on the other side. And I've done this on the other side, and I've made my knots. Okay, how I know how far I should make my knot? Because if you make your ropes too short, you know, the weight's going to hit up here, and you're not going to be able to close the window all the way. And if it's too long, the window's just going to fall, and it won't. You're going to have to pick up the window, you know, before you're going to have to pick up the window before it's going to work. So one way or another, you have to make sure that you have the right length of rope, but you have a little bit of play with it. Oh, I gotta put my door back in. Goodness. Of course, it's easy that I can stick my hand in that.
Yeah.
if the ropes are okay. But if you have to take this apart for any reason, replace the ropes. Okay? It's just cotton. It's not going to last forever. So, you know, if you had to take this off, well, you could replace the glass from the outside of the house. That's not a big deal. You can do it. But if you want to take them out for any reason, just replace the ropes. Then you had to do it, you know, it'd be horrible if you took it all, if you did all that, you put it away and 2 years later the rope breaks on you again. So. So, I got my top sash right here. I'm gonna bring the rope out. I bring the rope all the way to where the weights are touching the pulley. And I am about an inch from my hole. The rope is about an inch lower from the hole that it's going to go into, right there. And I make my knot. It's usually a double, triple, just simple knot, just so it's not going to get pulled up through here. And you see the knot will be, the knot will go to one side like that, so that's what I put in the hole. The hole is pretty deep. And make sure the ropes are in the slot before you pop it in. On the pulleys, okay, we have our first one in. But of course, before we put this in, we put our weather stripping up here, right? And also, if you can see, the pulley is in the way, so I had to cut this out for the pulley, okay? And if we kept this a square cut, when I pulled the sash up, it's going to catch the corner of that, and it's going to pull the spring up, and it's going to wreck it. So what I did is I cut it up at an angle like that, and that way it won't catch when I'm pulling it up. Can you guys see this right here? So it's cut square on the bottom, no big deal. But up here on the top, I just put an angle on it. So when that goes up, it's not gonna catch this copper and break it or bend it, and then you got a problem. Okay. There we go. Did we put that? Yeah, we have the bulb on there. We're all set. Okay, so where do the bulbs go? Okay. I think thank you. I'll put it back in. This isn't the only weather stripping that's out there. And I'm going to show you something in a minute. There is a weather stripping that's really good. It was popular back in the 10s and 20s, and it's called a T-strip. Okay? And the T-strip, they would put a groove right in here on both sides, and you put it in here on the sash, and then you put the sash in. And there's one nail that goes up here, and one nail goes there, and then when you pull the sash up, you put a nail in here, a nail there. And what it does is weather can't get through here, because that T-strip goes into the groove, okay? And they would also have one on the bottom. It's going to be in a book that I'm going to ask you to buy. It's not mine, you have to buy it, but it's a really great book. So, you know, it's not my book. I know they got it. So that's something that you may come up on. My house in Albany had that. And so there was a little bit of a problem getting it out because you had to take the bottom nail out, just only put one nail in, and the top nail out, and then when you pull the sash out, that had to come out with it. And then once it came out, then you could pull them away from the window. But before you put the window back in, you had to put them back into the stash to slide in. But that was great window stripping. Okay. Yeah. Before I go any further, this book right here by Steve Jordan. He lives in Rochester. Okay, and he's expert on window restoration. He's an expert in preservation. And it's a really great book. It's a decent read. It talks about the history of windows. It talks about how to do weather stripping, how to repair windows. It has a lot of resources in it. And there's Steve's smiling face right there. I just, last winter, he just finished up Samuel Clemens' study. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, he just finished all the windows there. So he knows his stuff. But if you're really more interested in, this has everything in it that I'm just touching the surface here with what I have here. And there's a lot of stuff here. And then he has another book on storm windows right here also. So, okay, so the same thing. Now we have that in. I got to push this down the bottom like that. I got to put the parting pin. Boom. That's that. To get this guy in, we put our knots in. Remember, we make our knot about an inch below the hole that the knot goes in. Put our ropes in the slot. Like I said, sometimes the knot wants to pop out, so you may want to put a nail in it just to keep it in place. Good. We have that all. I have the nails sticking out. I can just sort of pop them right in the same holes, right where they were before. Gotta bend it a little bit to fit it in. Of course, like as you can see, this is cut at a 45-degree angle like this one, and so I have to put this in first. And to take it out, I had to pull the bottom out first. There we go, we got that through. When you're taking paint off of it, well, another thing is like, when you're taking this apart, okay, this hardware, This hardware, all of this has to be taken out and take the paint off of them, okay? And an easy way, that sounds like a problem, but it really, the easy way to do it is you take an old pot that you don't want to cook in anymore, okay? And you boil water and throw a little Tide in it or whatever laundry detergent you put in, put a little bit in, and just throw them in and let them boil, 15, 20 minutes, okay? And then when it comes out, it'll be soft as could be, and you just take like a brass brush or a nylon brush and you just take all the paint off of it, okay? And then before you put it all together, you take a little oil. Don't use like WD-40, or silicone. Use oil because it will last longer. And all the little moving parts, just sort of give it a little oil. And then when you're done with that, wipe off any excess oil so it doesn't stain the wood, especially if it's not painted. Okay, if you have a varnish on it, okay, instead of paint, you don't want to get oil on it. You wipe that off, and then you put that all back together again. Okay? And then
Excuse
paint.
me, would you repeat what kind of oil you recommend?
Just regular, a regular oil, like it could be machine oil, motor oil, whatever. You're just going to use a little bit. You don't need much because all these moving parts haven't been oiled, lubricated in a long time. So you just want to give it back some. You can see, like these guys here that I'm using, you can hear that they're a little squeaky themselves. So their bearings are probably already worn down too much right now. These can be replaced. There's a company, and I will give you, it's in the book actually. There are places that you can buy all these parts. You can buy these pulleys too and everything. So if they have failed, you can buy them. All right. So the next thing is if you're going to take paint off all of this, okay, you can scrape, okay, but you have to be worried about damaging the wood when you're scraping, okay. There's scraping. You can use chemicals to take it off. The nastier the chemical, the easier it works, okay, and some of the chemicals I wouldn't want to use, okay, but they're very effective. Or you can use heat. Okay, so on your page, on the one page, you'll see two different guns. One, the guy is holding in his hand there. That is really, really hot. You have to worry about it because it'll burn the wood. Okay, so you have to be careful using it. And the other one has an infrared plate. And you can just sit there and just lay it on there and go do something else. And then come back and then pull it off, put it somewhere else, and then scrape off all of those paint with it, okay? And it doesn't heat the paint really a lot, so you're not gonna like burn the wood or anything of that sort. But they're also not cheap, of course. So I have that, I don't have that. But I've used this is really easy to use. So now that goes with glazing. If you're taking glazing off, you can heat it up to take the glazing off, but you gotta be really careful because glass is really rigid. If you let the glass expand unevenly, it's gonna break. Okay, so usually I try to keep it away, or if I do, I usually take a putty knife and I hold it on the edge of the glass and the putty and keep it at an angle so it's not completely laying on the guides, and I just sort of heat just off of the glazing a little bit just to soften it up, and then it'll loosen up and it'll be easy to pull out. So we're going to go over this because I'm going to glaze a window over here. And these are two of my favorite scrapers right here. You can buy them anywhere. They work really great, and when you go down and you go buy scrapers, you will find 100,000 different styles you can use. This one is a real mess because I let my daughter paint my barn, and I let her use my tools. I should have her buy her own tools. But yeah, so they even went and bought a brand new blade for her. Oh man, she hit a nail. It's so great day to go to college. Come on, out of your house. No, I miss her. But anyway, so these both are really great. Nice to get into the tight spots, and then you have this. This is you might be able to get up in here, get in tighter areas with this guy. If you can't, take an old beat up screwdriver, but just be careful with the wood that's around there. And you're taking all the paint off if you're gonna do that. If you don't wanna do that, at least just scrape the paint that's sticking out, like the bulges of paint, especially in these two areas where these two meet. When you take this off, you're gonna have an excess of paint on here and over there. I didn't show this, but when you take this apart, when you take these stops off and the meeting board, you clean them up. You clean up anything that moves has to be cleaned. Because you're going to have excess paint that when you paint this, the paint's going to go in behind the stop, it's going to get on the parting board, and so forth. So you want to at least scrape all the paint off of that, okay? If you don't take the paint off of everything, which I understand because that's a lot of extra work, okay? But, okay, so you're going to take it all off and put it all back together again, and then you want to paint this window. Now, this is one surface, this is another surface. So when you're painting with a paintbrush, you paint this. And then when you're done with that, then you paint this. And you're keeping your brush away from the very edge of the stop or the style, okay? Because if you just throw it in, like most painters that you've hired on your house, they just take the paintbrush and they just run it up in the corner because that's the easiest and fastest way of doing it. And all that pressure just pushing all the paint right in there, and then you're gonna have trouble opening the window again. So you paint every surface as its own entity. Okay, that's really important.
Do you ever paint before you reinstall
You can, I guess, but then you're gonna have to put nails through it and so forth. But yeah, or you could at least put your primer on, and if you put 2 coats on, you put 1 coat on, and then nail it in and do your last coat. Okay? Yeah. All right. Any questions on this? Now, your weights, your 2 weights on both sides, they equal the weight of that sash. If you put a weight that's too heavy on it, the window's always going to stay open. If it's too light, it's always going to stay closed. Okay? So usually with they're both the same. If the sash and if the top sash and bottom sash are the same weight, then the weights are the same. But sometimes you have a sash that's bigger than another one, than the upper one, or so forth. Then you'll have different size weights. And so when you put them together, you got to make sure you have the weights on the right. If you make a mistake, you'll know you made a mistake. All right, then you got to take it all apart, do it over again. So, okay, so that's how we do this. This thing was a mess when I got it. It's a pretty little window. On the back of this, okay, you will see references. National Park Service preservation briefs, okay? That is a great resource, okay? They have a thing on windows. Not only that, the preservation briefs have a lot of information and a lot of preservation maintenance work right in that website. You could just spend days on it. So much fun. Okay? Store windows. Spencer Works. That's the front of my house. I live at 41 Kellogg Street, and the front windows have wood storms that I bought from Spencer. Okay, now they are true storm windows, wood ones, but I don't have to take them out. Okay, the top window is fixed, but the bottom window is on a double track. I can, lift up the storm and bring down the spring or the screen, or vice versa. Okay, but it has the upper hinges on it, and I lock it in just like a regular wood storm window. But I don't have to take them in and out twice a year. Okay, they're great. The prices aren't that bad at Spencer. Okay, for what they cost. The delivery is amazing. It makes you lose your breath for a second. Okay, It comes on an incredible pallet, okay? I did a job for a family, and they took the pallet and they use it for a bike rack in their garage. They're still in their garage. It's just a mess. They gotta protect the windows, so that's what you're paying for. You're paying to protect those windows coming. There's also a guy in Sharon Springs that makes storm windows too, so that might be a closer thing that you can work with, okay? But yes, I worked with him. Key Points and Windows Restoration, those two websites are nice, those three. And then down below, materials. Killian Hardware, they are down in Philadelphia, and they have a great website, and you can buy everything for old windows right there. For a lot of old things on old houses, you can buy there. It's a great place. I was there once, and it's a neat little spot. You can get a lot of stuff right there. Okay, conservationtechnology.com, that is where I got all those silicone weather stripping pieces. Okay, I ordered that from Conservation Technology, and they also sell the bits for your router that'll match, what you need to buy. All right, and then zipwall.com, that's just those are just the poles that hold up the plastic if you want to encase a window that you're taking apart. Okay, it's just a website. And then the book, if you're interested in that book. Okay, so those are the things of that. I just want to give you this. I don't know if I have enough for everybody. Maybe I do. I don't think I do. But I do have some contractors right here. Contractors Millworks, that's in Sharon Springs. Richardson Window Works in Cooperstown. Red Point, they may or may not, unless you have a really big job, they may not do the job. But then Smith Window, but they're way out in Troy. So like the top two are, so I'm gonna leave these here if you want one, and if there aren't any, I will save one, and I'll let you take a photograph of it. Okay, but I'll leave that up here for this. Now, what I wanna do is just do a little glazing, if that's okay with you guys. Glaze one, but I'm going to put this over here for now. Okay, now on this window sash, this one has ropes, and when I lived in Albany, all windows had ropes, weights and pulleys, right? But I found what was popular in Utica were these pulls. Okay, so some of you may have in your house. Okay, and so that goes into a hole in the jamb, and you pull that, then you lift up the weight, and then it goes into another hole. Okay, so then you don't have to deal with ropes, right? But then you have to put the window where the holes are. You can also if you go to Killian Hardware, you can buy these, and you can just line it up where you want to put. You can put more holes in the jamb, and then they have a little grommet that goes into that, and then you can have it stay open wherever you want it to be. Okay. This guy here, I wanted to bring it in because what we have here is a window that really needs to be re-glazed, right? But we want to.
About the glass or the wood around it?
This is the glazing right here. So we had to reglaze the glass to the wood. Okay? So now we can see that some of this glazing is loose. All right? But if we look over here, it gets harder as I'm going up. And so, especially if I have glass that I want to save, I'm not going to, if the glazing is stuck really well, I'm going to leave it. All right? And then I'm just going to glaze around the rest of the area and just leave the old glazing there. All right, so I just wanted to bring this up to show you, because like, if you start chipping at this thing, if you make a mistake, forget about it. You break that glass and you're gonna go, okay. Get at it. You got this knife, and you take that space right between the mutton and where the glazing is, and yeah, you see his paint is right to the glass really well. So trying not to damage the wood at all. Just take a little bit out. But you know, as I say, I would just leave this part here. I can see where it's separating from the wood. I would try to get rid of that. But if it's not separating from your wood and it's pretty tight, leave it alone. Don't worry about it. And then glaze it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that back. This is just a little demonstration of what to do with old glass. This is a pretty job. So, one of the panes already broke, and the sad thing about it is I'm not a good glass cutter, so I spent a lot of time cutting this glass. I broke several panes of glass already yesterday doing it. But, so I only have one pane right now. So I've cut this glass to fit in here. And as I've taken the glass out, or I've set this up to prep it, I'm trying to make sure, now that it's out, I can see any loose or any glazing that's sticking up above the wood. Try to keep this as straight as possible, because we don't want to have a bump there to keep the glass raised. So that was force. I'm just scraping it smooth. Especially this piece. Especially this piece, because this is where the glass is going to lay. It's going to lay right on that. So I know this is going to fit in anyway, so I'm all set. So the first thing we have to do, I gotta put you somewhere else, I'm gonna break you.
On the chair.
Typical of me, busting it right before I put it in. We got linseed oil, all right? Boiled linseed oil. If you buy regular linseed oil, unboiled, you can for this, but like if you were going to use it as a preservative, it doesn't dry for a very long time. It isn't boiled, but it's heated up. And the other side. And so you may have to wait around a long time for it to set. But what I want to do is, where the glass and glazing is going to go in, I want to hit that with linseed oil, okay? Because if this wood is really dry, and we put the glazing on it, the dry wood is going to suck the oils out of the glazing, and then you're not going to have good adhesion. And then in a year or two, you're going to see the glazing is already starting to separate from your sash. So you want to. No, I can't. So I just take a little bit and I run it right on the wood, covering where the glazing is going to go onto there. I'm not gonna do the whole thing, but I'll just give you an idea. Yeah, if you don't do this, all that hard work that you did will fail. So, you want to make sure you put your linseed oil in. Another thing about linseed oil, that's what this is. The glazing, is calcium carbonate with linseed oil. Okay? So, if you bought this stuff a couple years ago and it's dried up a little bit, it's hard to work with, you can just put some in your hand, put a little linseed oil, mix it up in your hand, warm it up, and it's back to work again. Okay? This is messy.
Use plastic gloves.
I'm sorry?
You don't use plastic gloves?
No. If I'm dealing with lead, yes. I don't like gloves. I mean, you know, like, if you watch, like, even guys that work with glass, you know, a lot of them don't wear gloves either. They like to be able to know what their hands are doing. They don't want to have their hands slipping on the glass and not feel it if it's slipping. So,
Either way.
okay, so yes, at this point you should wash your hands, okay, because it's gonna color the glazing anyway. I'm not gonna,
Do you want to move your,
because this stuff's gonna come right off of my students after I make them do it, and they're gonna roll their eyes. But okay, so you got your glazing. It's a hot summer day. No big deal. This stuff is it's gonna work with you just fine. But if it's cold outside, you want to warm this stuff up, or it's not gonna work for you. So you're just kneading it, working it up until it feels warm in your hand. Little thin ones. I'm just laying them in the wood like that. That's going to make stretch it out as much as I can.
Is there a minimum thickness you want, or
I'm sorry?
is there a minimum to how thick you want it?
As thin as you can make it. All you're doing is you're just making a seal on the inside of the window. So, and it gives it a cushion when you're pushing the glass onto and if there's any bumps or anything, as you're pushing it down, it doesn't snap on you. Okay, so. Because that sticks to it, then you got to go hardware store, the hardware store again to get more glass. Okay. So you would do this all the way around, okay? I'm not going to do that here because you don't have to sit there and watch me do that. But you would do that all the way around. Then you take the glass that you cut or you bought and so forth. When I order glass, I usually order glass I make my measurement. I make my measurement here, here, and here. The long way here and here. And of course you're going to take your smallest number, right? And then you're going to cut it down, I hate to say 3/30 seconds, but yeah, a little bit bigger. Maybe not quite an eighth, but yeah, about 3/30 seconds. So in between an eighth and a 16th, I know that seems like really too small, but if you did right exactly the same size, you're always gonna have imperfections where they make that cut. And it's off by, if it's off by a 1/16 of an inch, then, you know, you gotta get another piece of glass, okay? So, I'm pressing it down into the glazing, all the way around. Then I have these things we call points. And they're just little pieces of metal. Okay, I know you can't see them. There's a little point on them, and then there's an edge that sticks up where I'm going to put my putty knife into. And I lay it flat, the flat part, on the glass like this, and then I take my putty knife, and I'm going to push it into the mutton. All the way until those vertical pieces hit the wood. All right? If it's a big piece of glass, you're going to put 3 on this side.
What do you call those little pieces?
Points.
Points.
They're points. That's what they look like. Just pass them around.
How strong is that now?
I'm sorry?
Can you break the mutton when you push into it?
Do I break the glass?
No, the wood.
Yeah, you're taking that point, you're putting it into the wood.
How strong is that mutton?
With an old glass, with this, sometimes it's really hard. It all depends. This wood's pretty soft, so I don't have a problem with it here, but sometimes it can be pretty tough. And you have to go as horizontal to the glass as possible. If you start pushing down like that, you might break the glass. So, and you want to push it all the way. See that? You see those two pieces of metal that come up that are perpendicular to the point? You have to keep it going until it hits the side of the jamb right there. Now we have this thing secured. It's not going to go anywhere. I got little points holding it on, and you would see the glazing stick out all the way around, and it's going to come out on the interior side of the house, right there. Okay. So when you're done, you're going to go back. You're going to the house, and then you're going to scrape all. You're going to just take a knife and cut that off.
How fast is that harden? How fast does that glazing harden? Like, do you have like 10 minutes to
A
get it
year.
out, or?
Year maybe.
Oh, a year.
Okay, yeah, it's got linseed oil. You gotta let the linseed oil dry. So when you're gonna prime it, you're gonna prime it with an oil-based primer. All right, and then you can put latex on top of it if you want. Okay, but you would want to use an oil-based primer on this. All right, because if you put a latex primer on there, it's wet. It's not gonna work. So it's got to be, you gotta make the linseed oil happy. You're happy. When it's sad, it's sad.
That's much thicker.
Big, thicker one, yeah. And there'll be lots left over. Okay, so I'll do this one side. I push that in, and now I'm going to take my putty knife, okay, and I'm going to push it in I'll pick it up once I push it in, show you what I did. I'm squeezing the putty. Into the wood and into the glass. Going to get really good adhesion here. All right. So there, glaze, I'm all done, right? Looks good? Okay. All right. So that's where the putty nut comes in again. Make sure your putty nut is clean. Okay, some people can use the end of the blade like this and pull it forward. I have to use the side of the blade here. And I'm trying to keep it to the point of where keep it to where the interior wood is. That's where I'm trying to keep the glazing on the outside about that height. Doesn't always work, but I try to keep it as close to that as possible. So I touch the glass and the mutton. That was my first run. Okay? I'm going to work it a little better. Oh, that was better? A little better? Okay.
So what's the difference between this glazing and just caulking?
A lot of things. Okay, the caulk, number one, is
It's not gonna last this long.
it's not going to last as long. Okay, what's really amazing, me working in traditional with old homes, is every time I see a new product come out, I look at it and says, the old product is replacing, lasts a lot longer than this will. But the new product is easier to apply. Okay? That happens a lot. So say you bought a silicone caulk, okay, and you lay this in. All right? It's not attaching to the wood. Well, it's attaching to the wood, but it's a glue. Okay? This has linseed oil in it. It's going to absorb into the wood, okay, and it's going to last longer if it's done correctly, okay. Caulks can cause a lot of trouble, and then if you want to take the caulk off, yeah, you're going to have a nightmare on your hands. I got that problem right now. I was fixing. I was putting a couple of the gravestones back together, and one of them that fell. Somebody tried to fix it with a caulk, and so I'm trying to take the caulk off of it for making it to work. But getting the caulk off the stone without damaging the stone is really difficult. You know, it's stuck. But it broke right at the caulk seam. There's caulk on this side of the stone. There's caulk on this side of the stone, and that failed. okay? But it stuck to the stone really well, but now I have to take that off. So, now you have that, and I've seen guys say like, oh, well, you know, I just put a dab of silicone on here before I put the glazing. But the linseed oil is going to absorb into the wood and help protect the wood. Okay, okay, good. All right, so that is it, okay? So, I just did one side of it, obviously, but that is it. And then all of a sudden, you got the other side over here. And we got that out. We're all set. And now it can be painted. Anybody want this? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Scott. This indeed was incredibly educational. And when you have audience members who ask questions that make sense, you know that the speaker did a good job. So I think you did a fantastic job. Thank